Gina's experience in sports marketing and sponsorship spans all across pro sports, collegiate, public, and corporate sectors. She's a multi-talented executive with a diverse experience and background portfolio. She's got clients, she's got impassioned corporate sponsorships, brand management, talent acquisition, marketing, and of course, live entertainment production. Gina is a graduate of the University of Florida. Go Gators. I figured. With a degree in advertising and an advanced degree in exercise and sports science. She's also got a specialization in sports philanthropy. Again, what we were talking about earlier, giving back. Ms. Scott is a member of the Women in Sports and Events, was executive and leadership class of 2016. She also serves on the advisory board for All Sports United, a nonprofit with a mission of recognizing outstanding philanthropic work by sports personalities. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for 2020 Sports Powers Brunch Enterprise and Innovative Award honoree, Miss Gina Scott.
Good morning. So I think I can officially make that my walkout music. So first of all, I am truly, truly honored to accept this award, Latanya, and be among such an esteemed group of women. And it really warms my heart as I look across the audience and see so many familiar faces that span my career from starting in my Baton Rouge days to up in TC. When Latanya first contacted me, I was a little bit surprised because I was thinking, I really haven't done anything. And then I stopped to think, and I said, you know, I feel like everything that I've done, it's been, in my world, you know, it's been like fun. Not really revolutionary, not blazing trails, you know, not work, but more like fun. So I guess that means that I found some type of magic formula in that it's working. I would like to, again, thank you, Latanya, and your organization for recognizing my work. I've really been more of a behind-the-scenes person, and I'm very comfortable being behind the scenes. And you don't do what you do for recognition, but it's nice when someone taps you on the shoulder and realizing they make a public acclamation for what you've done. Again, Latanya, Sports Power Brunch, I want to thank you for everything that you're doing for women in our industry, to advance the industry, to bring recognition, and really what you're doing for the future of sports professionals. So I would be remiss if I did not recognize my NFLPA family. We don't work together. We are really a family, and I want to thank you all for being here today, as well as a few other very, very special friends in the audience. So again, thank you for this recognition, and I appreciate it.
Now Pam resides with her amazing husband in Atlanta, Georgia, the icon, the legend, Pam Oliver. As Pam comes to the stage, she is being awarded the Excellence in Media Award presented by Jennifer Alvarez, right here, Vice President of Creative and Digital with the NBA's Miami Heat.
We see you. And I also want to give a shout out to my fellow honorees here today. I've been asked a number of questions from young women about how they break into the field, how they basically become me. And my answer to them is to always shoot higher. Ebony, I appreciate all of the accolades and the descriptors, but I've always just tried to be just Pam. Just Pam, who loves what she does the best she can every single Sunday and throughout life. I was asked today another question, what I want to be in 2020. It's the same thing, you know, all of my life, and I just want to be better. People give me credit for a number of things, but I feel there's a whole nother road ahead. And you're going to hear from me if you don't. If this doesn't, well, anyway, we got a Fox executive in the house here. But this is no fluke. This is not something that I just, oh, okay, somebody gave me something. It wasn't anything like that. When I started my career in Albany, Georgia. I was hired to be the agriculture reporter. Who knows anything about agriculture is a mystery to me, but you know what? They said, we want to hire you, when can you start? But walking into that newsroom, I was the quote-unquote minority hire. And you come in with sideways looks when that happens. But I was not going to give anybody the satisfaction to say, well, she cut corners. She doesn't deserve to be here. You know what? I do deserve to be here. I'm going to run circles around you. I'm going to learn that a peanut grows in the ground. And I'm going to be proud of it. Yes, I am. But the moral of that story is to show young women, men, that there are different paths to the same goal. That it's not always a clear-cut thing. And it frustrates me to no end when these young people, men and women, well, they want to take shortcuts. What's wrong with going a little bit around the bend? It's okay. And I think that's why I've been able to accomplish some of the things I've been able to accomplish, just being patient. I love what I do. I've always wanted to do it. I was that little girl with the hairbrush in the mirror going, Pam Oliver, Channel 10 Action News. Always Channel 10 Action News, why I don't know. But I was just, excuse me while I get my lipstick off. I was just determined to represent my goal, my dream. I believe in visualization. I believe in the power of God. I believe in support systems. I believe in giving back. If you want my phone number, you can have my phone number. If you want my email, you can have my email. I didn't have that when I was coming up. And I think it makes a difference to have that personal contact, because I want these young kids to succeed. This is my 30th year in television. 30th year. 25 at Fox, and people are always like, well, you know, a woman in sports, how does that happen? How does that happen? Dude, what do you mean, how does that happen? It happens because you love what you do, and you go about it, and you do what has to be done to get the work done. Simple. There's no magic formula. Go after it, kill it when you get an opportunity, and just be the best you can. This is an amazing event. Ebony, I read your book, and I loved it. I loved it. Thank you for that. And for everybody here, I hope you have a great day. To the folks in the back, we love you. We don't forget about you. Go for A&M. The AKAs would not have me. That's a story in and of itself. In and of itself. But thank you so much.
Is the Executive Director of the Women's National Basketball Players Association. In her role, Terry has been responsible for the WNBA's board relations, the executive leadership and management, financial governance, and stakeholder outreach. These responsibilities have required her to be great at negotiations, great at problem solving, creative marketing, and just an all-around fixer. You can really call Terry the Olivia Pope of the WNBA. Terry joined the WNBA Players Association after 4 years with the NCAA. In her last position at the NCAA, she reported to the Chief Legal Officer, also the Executive VP, and she served as the Director of Law Policy and Governance. Terry has worked with all divisions of NCAA ball, Divisions 1, 2, and 3. She's also been on associate-wide committees as it relates to legislative and policy matters. Prior to her time at the NCAA, Terry was legal counsel for athletics, later assistant general counsel, and at the University of the District of Columbia. Terry's from Jersey. Terry earned her JD, her law degree, from Georgetown University Law Center, as well as her bachelor's degree from Georgetown. She's been recognized by her alma mater with 2 awards of distinction. First, the Samuel A. Hazley Jr. Award for her service to the Georgetown community, And Terry also received the Paul R. Dean Alumni Award, which is given once a year to graduates of Georgetown Law who have exhibited phenomenal leadership. For the past 2 decades, she's been happily married to Jaren Jackson, former WNBA champion of the San Antonio Spurs. Any Spurs fans in the house? No? Whatever. Shade. They have one son, Jaren Jr., who's followed in his father and mother's footsteps, I'm going to add, who now plays for the NBA's Memphis Grizzlies. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor, my esteemed privilege to welcome Terry Carmichael Jackson, 2020 Sports Power Brunch Trailblazers awardee.
She and I didn't talk about it, but I swear to you, that is my theme song. We all have one. That is my theme song. I hear it playing and I'm like, what?
Terry sing song.
No. I understand my limitations. For those of you in the back, Pam asked me to sing. That's not happening. Don't worry about it. As the executive director of the Women's National Basketball Players Association, I'm the staff lead for the first ever sports union, labor union for women athletes. I don't know if you know that, but I need you to know that. We are the first. And there is a theme that is constant in my position, and it's servant leadership. Right? Servant leadership. You must work in the best interest of the current members, the current WNBA players. You must work in the best interest as well of future members, future WNBA players. When you lead serve, you look to strike the proper balance. You must hear your members, you must position them in the best way possible, and you must make sure that your work uplifts who they are. When you lead serve, make no mistake, you must serve first before you can ever lead. All right? And in this role, I'm very clear that I report to the players. I report to the executive committee. I report to the board of player representatives. I report to some amazing membership. There's 140 plus of them across 12 teams. They are probably some of the most intelligent, the most dynamic athletes who happen to be women on the planet. And I'm just so proud of them and proud of the work that we all did. By sticking to some fundamental values, equity and investment, respect and dignity, diversity and inclusion, by sticking to those principles, those fundamental principles, we conducted a negotiations that resulted in a 2020 all-new collective bargaining agreement, and we are so proud of this CBA. I'm hopeful that the CBA will empower women in team sports, in basketball, women in sports, period, women across any industry. Take a minute, if you will, and just scroll through that CBA, read through the CBA, because the things that we managed to negotiate, like I said, are things that I hope empower us all, that we all find wins in this agreement. I'm hopeful also that the work that we've done and sticking to these principles will inspire our next generation of Giannas and Alyssas and Peytons. We're going to know their names, right? Because they very much wanted to be a part of the W. What we did, I pray, is a marker in the women's basketball history and a marker in the overall movement of what it means to be a woman today. I want to just take a few seconds and recognize LaTanya, because she is a warrior. And her passion shines so fiercely, and she is the reason why we are all together in this room. And I am so thankful and so grateful for her. And I'm so grateful for this award. I accept it on behalf of my player leadership, on behalf of my membership, and on behalf of our staff at the WNBPA. Thank you very, very much.
Yes, ma'am. Van Adams, take it away.
All right. So let's get into it right away. I know you have bios in front of you, so we're going to bypass that part and hear some of these gems that these ladies have to drop on us on how we secure the bag. The first part of securing the bag is you need to know your worth, right? I want to share something with you if you all are not aware. You know, we hear about smashing the glass ceiling. It's really not about the glass ceiling, it's about the broken rung. We're missing the ladder steps that we need to get to the next level to get up because they're broken. And part of them being broken is we don't have the right alignment, the right networking circles, we don't have the right mentors and the right sponsorship to get us there. And we don't know the worth, we don't know what we're negotiating. You always need to know your numbers. Also, there's something else we're going to talk about today in 3 parts. It's going to go real quick, right? Real quick. Knowing your worth, know how to negotiate your salary, and your financial wellness. So with that, I want to start with Jennifer. Tell us a little bit about how you came to know your worth.
Certainly. Thanks for having me. Nice to see you, Rashida. Nice to see you, Van. My background is that I've been with Octagon now almost 14 years, and there are certainly pros and cons of staying with an organization for as long as I have. There's no question that you miss out on some opportunities to leverage outside opportunities, but I negotiate not just for myself, but I also negotiate as a career for clients. Clients of Octagon include Emmett Smith, who you'll see me running around with starting tomorrow. And then across our company, we represent everyone from Michael Phelps to Stephen Curry to Elena Deladon. And it's really been a learning process through the years. But my favorite kind of quick negotiating tip, whether it's negotiating your own salary or negotiating a lease, negotiating a deal on behalf of a partner, is ask the unexpected question. And for me, sometimes the most helpful question that I ask is the one that I think you maybe feel is impolite to ask, and it's not impolite, and that's, you know, how does this compensation compare to others? How does this compare to my peers? How does this compare to what you have paid other athletes for similar services? And oftentimes people are a little bit taken aback because the expectation is that you're not going to ask them a question that is that direct. And often people are like, well, you know, I can't tell you for confidentiality reasons, but I can tell you the range. You can get some really helpful information by simply asking a question that you might think could get a no or can get a, I'm not telling you that. Most times the answer is going to be something that you're going to find useful.
But before we can get to the negotiation part, we've got to know what your worth is. So what do you think, Rashida? How do we get to the point of knowing our worth?
Hey, can everybody
In
hear
the
me?
back here. Y'all good? Okay, great.
Hi everyone, my name's Rashida Gale again. Thank you all for coming out. I can't believe I've been working in sports for about 5 years now. I've never seen this many women in a room. So shout out to you guys. Shout out to LaTanya. I can't, as everyone else said, thank you so much for putting this amazing event together. Regarding your question, I think knowing your worth, so I'm pretty young in this industry, and a lot of me realizing what I'm worth is my value. What do I bring to the table? So if I am negotiating anything, whether that's with a client, whether that's with a corporation, or whether that's with my job, what am I bringing to the table? What will I not accept? And so ask the people around you, hey, what do you usually get for this? What, just like Jennifer said, what is the common number? What is the common commodities, really, of whatever you're trying to negotiate? I think once you kind of get a better idea of what you're looking for and you know truly what you bring to the table, don't bring what everyone else brings to the table. Everyone has the same resume. What makes you stand out? Why will a company or a corporation want to choose you or your client, etc.? So I think understanding your value and asking questions around you, building up your knowledge will absolutely help you to negotiate a better opportunity for yourself.
And so let's talk about some of those numbers. When we talk about equal pay, we heard a lot of that from Terry a few moments ago. Let's just talk about where we are in terms of women and men and salary and on the dollar. So we've heard a lot about 79 cents on the dollar is the average woman to a man, right? That's not the average woman. That's only white women. Black women are making 67 cents on the dollar.
Unacceptable.
Hispanic and Latinas are making 58 cents on the dollar. And if you're Asian, now they're doing a little bit better. They're 92 cents on the dollar. But I don't know about you, but I want all my dollar, the whole dollar, right? We're comparing apples to apples, experience, job duties. If everything is equal, why should I then come in at 67 cents on the dollar? So as Rashida was saying, you gotta know your numbers, know what you're willing to accept. And as Jennifer pointed out, you gotta have some fact finding in there. You gotta start talking to people. So what are some of the ways, because when you ask somebody how much you make, that can be a little sensitive, a little personal, but to get a salary range. So what are some of the ways that we can help our audience understand how they can have those conversations when they're out networking?
I would say that trust really takes time. I've started working in the sports industry back in '97 at the NBA, and it was a very different time as far as information sharing, what was accessible on the internet. And through the years, I've really been able to build a network of women and people who are allies to women and are willing to really, share the information that matters, even if it means risking, being embarrassed themselves. They could say, hey, listen, this is what I got paid when I had that job. And it could be that they're revealing that they were underpaid. And that's a painful thing, I think, for any person to have to acknowledge. But in sharing that information and building those relationships and those trusts between women especially, and I offer my negotiation services almost as a private thing to women and people of color that I come across in my dealings every day. It's important for me that we're all doing better, that we're all being taken care of. The other thing I also say is obviously money is the biggest thing that people focus on with negotiation, and for most of us it is the most important thing. To say otherwise would really be devaluing to all of us. But it's also important to think about other things that have value to you. Perhaps you're a working mom and the ability to have flexible hours or a flexible workplace, work from home periodically. These are things that have value. A friend had a baby, and after the baby was a year old, she realized, I do not want to be traveling as much as I am. And she worked with her employer to find a position that compensated her fairly, but was also a change in focus and didn't require travel.
Yeah, so that sounds like that's the whole salary package. So when you're trying to figure out a salary range or what you should be getting paid, you also need to look at the benefits and the lifestyle aspects that are important to you, because it may not always be about the exact dollar. You may want to work remotely. You may want to have a longer extended maternity leave. Whatever it is for you, what's important for you is what you need to focus on and be negotiating for. Rashida?
I was going to add, I think, Jennifer, you went into great detail, really just asking questions, but whose office doesn't gossip? Gossip is going around. People are revealing information, and I know we like to mind our business, but you shouldn't. You should be listening to what other people are saying. You should be ask the question, oh really, that's what he makes? That's crazy. But no, keep that in the back of your mind, because that's genuinely how you find out information. People are looking to you to talk to you, or if you're in the room and you get some type of tea or some type of information, don't disregard it or walk out like, I don't belong here. No, yes you do. And here's the office gossip and information that you will probably help you out in your future negotiations. So don't respond and have anything inappropriate to say, or why does he or she make that much, etc. No, you always want to come to the table with a whole heart and high integrity, but you want to make sure that you collect that information, because if you don't, you're just not going to know what's going on.
And not just collecting the information, right? Because here's something we tend to do as people, it's innate in us. If I only ask these ladies what they're making, then I'm only getting their perspective. I need to find the men who are allies and ask them what they're making. I need to find the Asian women and ask them what they're making. You need a diverse spectrum of people to understand what they're making at various levels. And that's not just in sports business, any business, to find out, well, what does, a partnership, sponsorship, development person make who's working on the media side of the business versus maybe consumer products. With more information, your numbers then start to pile up, and you can then kind of see where you fit in that ecosystem.
Whatever you're trying to negotiate, if it's appropriate for you, but definitely understand that it's a consistent growth, constantly learning, constantly trying to figure out information, and as you get older, you will hopefully get to a number in your career that you're happy with.
One thing that I would add is, and this was one of the hardest career lessons that I learned, and as women, I think, we're striving in school to be the best and to receive approval from the teacher. And all along, we're advanced simply through performance. And that's just not the case in the workplace. And I think that's something that men are taught from an early age. You really have to be aggressive and be assertive and ask for what you want. And that's not what I did. And I worked at the NBA for 4 years, and I was promoted twice while I was there. And so that kind of reinforced this idea of good performance will yield results. But the reality is, after that, I really got into a career rut. I was doing things that I loved, and I thought to myself, well, this is good. I'm learning, I'm growing. But the reality was, I was having a huge period of career stagnation in terms of salary and title. And when I took my current job many years ago, it's almost 14 years ago, the biggest trap that I almost fell into, and this is another piece of advice I would love to share with you, is when somebody tries to ask you, what you're making right now, and this is something that is legally barred in some states now, you flip that question. You say, the salary at which I am prepared to consider making a career move is Y. You don't want to tell them your current salary. There's no reason that anyone should expect you to take a new job at the same salary or a small increase. You may be excited about $10,000 more, but when you do the math after taxes and spread it out over your paychecks, that's not going to be making the life change that you need.
Yeah, and before we wrap it up and go to the questions, if you think about your networking, if you are intentional, right, and be very intentional with how you spend your time. You only have 24 hours in a day, but how you spend it and maximize it will make all the difference. So organizations like WISE, we have programs like the Power Play. Every March for Women's History Month, we go into an organization and bring out the senior most leadership for a panel. We have financial fitness, which talks about our financial wellness, not your 401k per se, but how you get up that ladder and get over the broken run. Those are, those networking events and those environments, and we're in 27 different chapters around North America and the country. Tap into those resources. When you go to those events, when you get involved in those programs, you see ladies like you see here in this room, and you can have those conversations in safe spaces. Because your financial wellness is really important. It's stressful when you're not financially well. You want to make sure that you have your salary, your professional life in order so that you can be the best you. Are we tossing it over to the Twitter?
Close, you're tossing it just directly to me. Okay, so, thank you, all three of you ladies, giving major gems on the power of getting your worth, collecting your bag, ladies. Let's give the ladies a round of applause. While we don't have any questions on this particular panel, as you pay attention to the next panel, again, y'all, get into the game here. Hashtag Sports Power Brunch. Make sure you're tweeting your questions there. Now, I wasn't on this panel, but where's LaTanya? Yeah, girl, when you hire me to be the host, I'm like a panelist on all the panels. That's just like par for the course. So here are my two nuggets on negotiating. Two things. Number one, for any woman or man in this room that feels anxiety rise up in you at the thought of asking for more money, of negotiating an offer, for any reason, for fear that the offer will be rescinded, for fear that you'll look greedy or thirsty. Let me just give you this piece of unsolicited legal advice. 99% of the time, the offer you're being given is in some kind of business capacity, right? What kind of business person can you be for that organization or company if you don't even have the wherewithal to negotiate for your own self? Right? Does that make sense to y'all? If I'm hiring you and you're going to be some kind of executive or advocate or anything in my company, and you take the first thing I offer you, I'm already questioning the hire. Because if you don't have the mindset the professional gusto to push back on that offer and negotiate the highest possible value for yourself, what kind of confidence? I'm already looking at you sideways because I can't have full confidence that you're going to do that for me and my business. So again, I use this as just a colloquial example of never fear negotiating. It is an asset, it is a requirement if you want to be taken seriously in a professional space. Number 2, this is a content tease. My publicist Giselle will probably not like that I'm sharing this. Oh, that got your attention. That I'm sharing this with you. But we're going to have plenty of content coming out in 2020 about the power of the past. Sometimes when you're negotiating, the most powerful thing you can say is "I'll pass." It's a scary thing to say. It is not nothing to play with. You have to be in a position to be able to pass. We'll go into that. But I can tell you guys, every single job I've ever had in mass media came as a result of an initial pass. More to come on that in 2020. Next panel. All right. That's a tease. Okay, our next panel is going to be the deal-making panel. I'm excited about this personally. This is powered by LPS Consulting. We're going to welcome our moderator, Ms. Kelly Masters. Kelly, oh, beautiful. Kelly's with the NFL Sports Agent. She is an NFL Sports Agent and attorney. She's also the founder and president of KMM Sports. And our panelists are Ms. Lisa Joseph Metellus. Lisa, oh, excellent. Lisa, right here, co-head of basketball marketing and servicing at CAA Sports. And last but not least, I'm excited to meet Ms. Nicole Lynn. We're Twitter followers. Hi, Nicole. Nicole's an NFL agent and attorney as well. She's with Young Honey. That's very cool and culturally relevant. And APPAA Sports Agency. Give these ladies a round of applause. This is our deal-making panel.
Thank you so much. It is such a joy to be here. And I'm one of the old ones. I've been around. I've been practicing law for 20 years. I've been around for 15 years. Raise your hand if you were around the Super Bowl 15 years ago. A handful of you. Look at how much we've grown. How amazing is this? How amazing is it to see so many women doing incredible work in the sports world? I understand we are short on time. We only have about 10 or 15 minutes, and we're just going to jump right in and talk about a couple of questions that I think the women in the room would love to hear from both of you. Talk a little bit about, just describe your journey to becoming a deal maker. What was that journey like?
So, Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My journey to becoming a deal maker was a little interesting, and some of you guys may have heard me speak before. Originally, I knew that I always wanted to work with athletes. I didn't necessarily know what the title was of what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to support them. And so I went to the University of Oklahoma and I got a business degree. And I originally thought I wanted to be a financial advisor for athletes. And so I went and moved to New York City. I worked at a company called Morgan Stanley. I did investment banking. I got my Series 7 and my Series 63, and I was rolling. I was excited. And then I met with a financial advisor that represented some of the biggest name players in the game, and I kind of asked him what he did. And when I learned what he did, it was not what I wanted to do. I wanted more day-to-day kind of navigating the life of the player, and I learned very quickly that that's what an agent did. So I pivoted, and I applied to law school. I went to the University of Oklahoma. I had never met an agent. Kelly was actually one of the first agents I ever met, which she was very instrumental in my career because I had the opportunity to see someone doing what I wanted to do that didn't look like everybody else. So it gave me the hope that I could make it. So to make a long story short, I graduated law school. I spent some time at the NFLPA with Gina, my girl, Cassandra. Those were my bosses. I learned a bunch, and then I got certified, and then 5 years later, here we are.
So thankfully I get to wake up to this backdrop every morning, being here in Miami. And to keep it short, honestly, my journey was right here, kind of in this building, in this vicinity. I went to the University of Miami and graduated with a bachelor's in communications. And as soon as I got out of school, I started an internship with Miami Heat. And that led to working closely with Alonzo Mourning for 13 years, running all of his nonprofit initiatives. And also then turned into managing and working with Dwayne Wade. So this is like my backyard. Shout out to everyone from the Heat here. But yeah, I mean, they've seen me grow, and I've been here, and that's been my journey. I'm currently now at CA.
I love so much that some of the things we've heard today, yes, be a strong deal maker, but also it's about service, and it's about taking care of people. And that was my journey to becoming a sports agent. I had no idea that I was going to work in sports when I grew up. I got my law degree and went into a very normal, very boring litigation practice. Did just that for 5 years, but my passion was nonprofit organization law. And so I started working with a former NFL player and his family, and helping with his foundation, cleaning up some messes for him, and it opened that world to me. And so I became an agent in 2005, honestly, through nonprofit organization law, and really wanting to help players not just maximize their opportunities on the field and during their careers, but leave a legacy as well. So that's always been the driver of why I wanted to do it, and I wanted to do it my own way and do it differently than, and that's what we're all looking for, is how do we differentiate ourselves from the rest of the crowd. And for me, it was I wanted to start my own company, which is virtually impossible to do, and yet I am still here, I'm still fighting, but I wanted to see that people could do something with a heart of service and be successful by wanting to serve other people and doing it the right way. And for me, that was wanting to be a trailblazer, is doing it a little differently. I just happen to be a woman. So yay for the girls that are digging in and doing things the right way and are blazing trails for other people to follow in their footsteps. I'm going to skip through, since we don't have a lot of time. What is a deal that you are most proud of? And then what is one of your toughest moments that you've overcome?
Can you guys hear me okay? Yes. Okay, good. The deal that I'm most proud of was the first client that I ever signed. So the first client I ever signed, the way I got the client, my husband played football at OU, he knew the guy. He had just been suspended for a rape case. And we knew he didn't do it, he got exonerated, etc., but he was out for a year, and I wanted to help him. And I'm also an attorney, I'm passionate about criminal justice reform, and without going into too many details, I'm like, you need a woman agent to tell your story. So that's how I got my first client. The innocence came out, but you need a woman agent to tell your story. I knew he would go undrafted, and it was my first draft. So typically when you have an undrafted player, somewhere in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round, you get phone calls from teams that say, hey, in case your guy goes undrafted, let's sign a contract after the draft. And so I'm sitting there by myself in my first draft, and nobody is calling. Okay, 5th round, nobody's calling. 6th round, nobody's calling. I barely have any connections in the NFL. I know like 4 people at this point. And I am panicking because I do not know what to do. When the draft ends, no calls. So I call the Broncos, and I'm like, hey, I remember you met with him at Pro Day. I'm curious if you're interested. I've got the Seahawks on the other line. This was a lie. I'm just going to tell you right now. I've got the Seahawks on the other line. Do you want to bring him in for a rookie minicamp? And I went back and forth and just negotiated, and I was able to get him on a team. He never made it in the NFL. He was cut, never had any other opportunities. But that is my most proud moment of my entire career, because I did it with nothing, with no one, with no connections. So, it speaks so much to really, when you don't have the resources, you can still make it through. And then the second.
That's actually probably an answer to both. It's probably one of your toughest moments that you overcome and persevered through. What about you?
I would say specifically as it relates to marketing, the deal that I'm most proud of being involved in involves Dwayne Wade and his leap from Brand Jordan to Leaning. He was part of the Nike family for about 7 or 8 years, always saw himself as a Brand Jordan athlete. And there was an opportunity that came across when we were ending his deal with Brand Jordan to sign with Leaning, which is a Chinese-based company that many people didn't know about. And definitely there was no one that was signed to that brand at his level. And there was a lot of talk and discussions about, for him, it was like, am I going to lose my cool factor by jumping from the jump man to Leaning? And I think that just the process and the time that we took to make that decision to get him there is one that we're still seeing the success of. One, he was a trailblazer in that space. He saw beyond just what the Jordan brand can do and saw global. We signed with Leaning for a 7-year deal. He created his own version of Nike and Jordan, where he has his own company under Leaning called Way of Wade. Cut to this past year, we signed a lifetime deal with Leaning, and he signed his first athlete under his brand in D'Angelo Russell with the Golden State Warriors. So when we talk about creating legacy, talk about being a trailblazer, I would point to that as one of my most proud moments.
I love that. Any tough moments that you just have to
There's so many.
There's too many.
I feel like we're all going through one right now, so yeah.
Absolutely. And just touching on that question, I've absolutely loved working with athletes over the years. One of my favorite stories just happened actually recently, and I had to share. One of my players is Tress Wade. He's a punter for the Redskins. He went undrafted, as most specialists do. We worked for 2 years to finally get him in a solid place with the Washington Redskins. He's now entering year 7 with the Washington Redskins, just playing the Pro Bowl, and he was probably the most excited, happy. He's just an amazing guy and so grateful. And I think that's what a lot of times makes it so much fun is we work for all these incredible guys, but the ones who are so grateful and they realize that this is a life-changing moment and you get to be part of that and you get to support them through that. We just renegotiated an extension for Tress, and the first time I came to him with the offer from the team, he said, "That's too much." And wait, you don't understand how this works. That's the first offer from the team. We want more than that. And so educating him, understanding that as the agent, you're not the boss, the player is the boss. But it's also your job to make sure they're educated, they understand exactly what their worth is and the process and how that looks. And walking through that process of educating and helping him understand what his worth really was and then fighting for that with the team and all of the for me and for many of us here, it's so much, that process is for me, so much fun. It's fun to dig in and to fight for somebody and get to that point. So I remember calling him and telling him, we've got a deal, it's ready to sign, go up to the GM's office to sign. And then I called the GM and said, Tress is on his way up to sign. And he said, well, we just walked in and we have a crier on our hands. He was bawling. And it's just to be part of someone's dreams coming true, be part of fighting for someone and helping them see their work even beyond the field and beyond their, what has become their identity as a football player is so incredibly worthwhile and rewarding. And I know everyone on this panel agrees. It is we truly have the best job in the world. I guess we're going to wrap up. Do we have any other questions? Otherwise? We're good. Thank you all so much, ladies.
Thank you so much, ladies. Nicole, Lisa, and Kelly. Yes, Kelly Masters. Thank you, Kelly. All right, for our final panel, we have one more in us, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we're still with you. Yes. All right, for our final panelist, this is Storytellers, Women in Media. This is powered by the Miami Heat. Ladies and gentlemen, the Miami Heat has really sponsored this event. They have been one of very many generous sponsors. Big round of applause for the Miami Heat. Welcome to the stage, moderator, Gabrielle Gabriel. We have Gabrielle is Vice President and Head of Marketing and Communications at Barnard College, that is of Columbia University in New York. And her panelists are Jennifer Alvarez, we saw Jennifer earlier, Vice President of Creative and Digital Marketing from the Miami Heat. Yes, Jennifer, come to the stage. Yep. And Miriam Bader, staff writer from the Bleacher Report's BR Magazine. Miriam has come to the stage. Oh, there she is on her way. And Kimberly Martin, Senior NFL writer. Yes, Kimberly, with Yahoo Sports. Oh, we need one extra chair. Okay, great. Make sure you're seen. Are we good? Is that a little bit closer now? Is it? Okay.
Okay, we almost done, but we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna wrap up and get some good gems out here. All right, so storytellers, we all have the privilege of telling stories I've worked in communications for many years. I worked at CBS Corporation for 7 years, worked on the Super Bowl. I worked at Comcast NBC Universal, worked on the Olympics, so that's my sports in. And now I lead communications at Barnard College, which is Columbia University's women's college. And it is the only women's college to offer Division I sports. So that's my other sports plug. But we have wonderful, wonderful panelists here. I encourage you to read their bios and follow all of them. We don't have time for questions, but if you tweet them, they'll probably tweet you back. I feel confident about that. And then use the hashtag as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Very quickly, let's talk about your entry level, women in sports. We can start with you, Maren. How did you get in as a sports writer?
Yeah, I used to be a basketball player. I know I'm very short, so that was not going to work out. So I had to be a writer, and I wrote to over 60 places across America. I either got no response or a no, and I just kept following up with the Orange County Register. I'm from LA. I thought that was doable, and I just was aggressively but professionally reaching out all the time, and finally I got an interview. So I was at the Orange County Register for 4 years before Bleacher, driving 1 million miles across SoCal, doing anything asked of me, and that really got my journey started.
Awesome. Kimberly?
I actually was like Nicole. I worked in finance for a bit, and I was fine going to happy hours in Manhattan, but when the day ended, I was really bored. So I remember being in my cubicle and applying to grad school and saying, I just want to be creative. I can write, I want to do that. And I applied to a bunch of places. I went to Syracuse and got my master's. I was actually a psych major too, so my whole journey has been around the world. But yeah, I just applied to Syracuse and decided I want to be a magazine writer, and I've never written for a magazine in my life. But I improved that it doesn't matter if you don't know what you want to do, or if the journey just takes you in different directions, because I wouldn't be here if I didn't do it that way.
Same for myself. I started as actually an intern with Miami Heat. So I've been here for a long time. This is my 16th year with the team, which you heard earlier about the challenges and the opportunities that come along with tenure. So starting as an intern and now being vice president for the team, I like to tell everyone I'm Eric Spoelstra, basically. Same path, everything, but I think it's really important to know that every position that I've had outside of my first paid role, I created myself. It's because I saw that there was an area that needed help, it needed fixing, it needed strategy, it needed ownership, and I raised my hand every single time for it. It wasn't always a move up. Sometimes it was a look to the left or a look to the right, but it meant growth and education for me, and that ultimately has helped me here where I am now. And I don't think that I'm at like my end state now. My career is always under construction. I'm always looking for what could be next.
So Jennifer, being at the Miami Heat for 16 years as a woman in sports, vice president, leading creative, leading marketing, what has been your gem? How have you been able to grow? Because a lot of people get really sexy, attractive internships, but an internship doesn't always turn into 16 years. Right. So what was it? How were you able to just grow and create these opportunities at the Miami Heat?
I really put in the work to tell people why I should have the opportunity to take something on. I wear a shirt that says culture. I started a clothing line here like 4 years ago. One thing about our team is that we really, really trust people who are innovative and have a plan, and I always presented the plan. Like I wasn't just coming in saying, pick me because. I was like, here's our success, here's what it's gonna cost, but here's gonna be the results of it. And so I've always had that support from senior leadership, and that's kind of how I am where I am.
So senior leadership, having that buy-in, having those relationships, people that like you in high places, so important. Maren, you are a features writer, human interest. So you write about the superstars to the gems to people we may not know, and then because of your writing, we know them. Can you tell us a little bit about how you choose who to feature? What does that look like? What's that step look like? What's the process?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm writing 4,000 words, I've got to make you commit within the first paragraph, really, or else you're going to give up. So I've got to bring you something interesting more than so-and-so is really good at basketball. It's got to be about the person. And so, after you finish the story, I want you to be able to say, oh, I know what that kid's upbringing was like. I know what his mom is like. Did you know when he was 14, this happened to him? like everything that happens off the court influences everything on the court. And so it's my job as a journalist to give the most full picture possible to explore humanity of somebody. And so when I'm picking stories, I'm picking universal themes, right? We'll never know what it is like to, be an incredible athlete like these men and women, but we know what failure feels like. We know what disappointment feels like. We know what joy feels like. We know what family feels like. And so the more I can find stories that have those universal themes, the more I know I'm going to attract a wider audience.
And Kimberly, you write, you're a phenomenal writer, but then you've also been working on your show, Cover 3. How were you able to make the transition from being behind the scenes to being in front of the camera?
I avoided that. I went to Syracuse, but I went as a writer. I avoided broadcasting because I wanted people to read the words. They would just see my byline, and if they saw by Kimberly A. Martin, they'd be like, okay, I have to read that because she wrote it. But the more you're in this industry, the more people have said, have you thought about doing TV? Have you thought about going on camera? Because don't limit yourself. That's kind of the reason I went to Yahoo Sports. I was at the Washington Post. I felt like I made it. This is the best paper in the country. I was covering the Washington Redskins. And then Yahoo came along and offered me a job that allowed me to be a columnist and on video personality, I guess. But it's something I struggle with because I didn't get into this for the on-camera work, but I think you need to exhaust every avenue. You have to push yourself to do things that are challenging. I actually am a very shy person. The people that know me well will say that's crazy, but I actually am. So I like writing about the people who are on screen. Like today, I actually have a profile on Pam Oliver that posted today on Yahoo Sports, so everybody should read it, okay? But when I tell you I have not slept this week, I have agonized because I was writing about Pam Oliver. So yes, Cover 3, it's great. 3 women doing a show. Every week this regular season, it was the first time I'd ever done a regular show. It was wonderful, and you need to, like I said, try to do broadcasting, try to write, try to do different things. But to me, that Pam Oliver story, that was everything in me.
So we heard in the other panels talking about your successes, talking about your failures, but I feel like in the interview process for most jobs, people ask, what are you most proud of? So I will ask you, what is that big story? Storytellers. What is the story that you were so proud to tell? What is the story that was hard to tell? Or Jennifer, you're creative. So what creative expertise, what creative project did you work on that you're most proud of? That kind of took your career to the next level, that someone recognized that and said, Jennifer worked on that, I need her. She needs to be here for 16 years.
That's the Vice campaign. And so we designed a uniform in-house called the Vice uniform, and we knew that it was unbelievable from the first day I saw it. But what I didn't expect was for everyone else to have such a visceral reaction to it. And so that really has kind of put the Miami Heat creative team and all of our work on a global, spotlight. I'm getting a lot of interest of people saying, like, tell me how it came to be, tell me about the brand, and tell me about the story. So that has also been really, really exciting to be a part of it, to know that, our legacy lives on in NBA history books. This creative is going to be viewed by other teams and other organizations worldwide. And I know financially what it's meant to the organization from a merchandise perspective and ticketing perspective. So that's probably like what I hang my hat on and what I sleep the best at night. But I worry about what I'm going to do next, and that's what keeps me up at night.
When I was at the Washington Post, I wrote a profile on Darius Geis, who was an LSU running back, and he was, people were talking about top 10, top 15 talent, and he slipped down to the second round, pick number 59, because there were all sorts of draft day rumors and veiled sort of, nothing was concrete, nothing was said what he did. It was sort of like, oh, this kid, there's some, immaturity issues. Like, people should watch, teams are talking about this stuff. So I went to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I just flew down. I said, I have to figure out what is the deal with this kid. I went there like, I'm going to get a story. I'm going to find out why this kid fell all the way to the second round. Had no connection to Darius. It was probably 4 days after he was drafted by the Redskins. And I ended up spending like 2 hours with Darius. I ended up finding his friends. I ended up going to the local seafood place because he posted on Instagram that they have the best food in the area. So I went there and talked to those people. Doug Williams, Doug drove me around the area where Darius is from. And I think it was the combination of the story, his life. It is just unbelievable what he's been able to overcome. But just his background, me being at the Washington Post and writing a feature and saying, this is good enough for the Washington Post. Like, personally, it was important to me. But also just Darius understanding. I said, I came down here to figure out what the deal is with you, and I'm gonna find it, you know what I mean? And he was like, Kimberly, have at it, let's talk, and those are the moments that I think, when you have players, I take it so seriously. Like, these people are trusting you with the intimate details of their lives. What is their father being gunned down in a Denny's restaurant when he's 5 years old. Like Pam sitting down with me and talking about everything that she's had to endure. Like, the people, they trust you with their story. And that, to me, is just the best thing I think about what we do.
Your success.
That was one of the first stories I read from you. It was amazing. I loved it. My story was, I got sent to Lithuania 2 years ago to profile LaMelo Ball. To get a sense of where my life was at that point, I lost my job at the OC Register because we had layoffs. Convinced that I was never going to get hired again. I was the youngest, I was the only woman, I was the least paid, and I did the most work. So I was just like, who is going to hire me? Like, how am I going to stick in this industry? In my last year at OC, I began freelancing for Bleacher and ESPN, and so when I didn't have a job anymore, I became a full-time freelancer. Life was really, really hard, and then they say, do you want to go to Lithuania? So I have to prove myself. I have to go to a foreign country by myself. I had no translator. LeVar Ball got very angry at the media and cut off all access on day 2. So I was basically sent to write the biggest story, and everything went wrong. Doesn't matter, I had to figure it out. And so this is where actually being small really worked. I sneaked into the gym. And they look at me, they're like, whose little sister is this? Like, nobody's taking me seriously. And I just pretend that I'm just here to watch. And then I ended up having a front row seat for 3 weeks. And that story got me a job at Bleacher, and it ended up being in Best American Sports Writing. So it just goes to show that, it is about grinding it out. Like, I literally was in Lithuania, like, God, please help me, I'm gonna die out here. It's the middle of the winter, gotta pay bills. Gotta be an adult. And so I finally just made it happen.
Yes, Mirrored and I are LA girls, so the winter is not our friend. I live in New York, and I still don't do winter. Thank you guys so very, very, very much. Ebony?
Thank you, Gabby.
Leadership Academy, co-founded by Corinne Milligan.
My mom is Haitian, she'd be serious.
I got it. And Maria Taylor, this check for $4,000.
Wow. I know we're short on time, but can I bring our game changers?
Of course. Ebony, thank you so much. I want to thank the Miami Heat. I want to thank 601 Miami. I want to thank my friends. Try not to cry. As most of you know, I lost my son 30 days ago. So, having to put this on, many times I just wanted to crawl up in the bed and see this. If you love this, I would encourage you and implore you to support what we're doing so we can give more money to organizations. We can give people more time on stage, because you can see people have a lot to say, and I want people to be able to hear it. So thank you so many people for giving up your time, your resources, and I'm so appreciative, and I love you all. And some people I just met, and some people I know just through Twitter. And then you all came out, and I am so happy, and I'm thankful, and I'm grateful, and I bless you all.